Hello, everyone. Welcome back to class. I am Patricia James, and I'll be your teacher for this evening. Today, welcome once again to the Peaceful Solution Character Education Program webinar. And today we're going to speak about a very important subject. Above all other character education and every other character trait, the trait we're going to speak about is self-control. Now, how many of you have the privilege of looking at the news in some way, whether it's reading or looking at it on the internet? Great. What are some headlines that you have come across that's made the news? Headlines that you've come across making the news? Many. The lady over here.
I guess one recent for me is a young lady. She went through a whole pregnancy, hid it from her mother. Her mother was kind of in denial, and she had the baby successfully on her own, but then she ended up strangling it and putting it in a shoebox and hiding it, and her mom stumbled across it because of the odor, and she reported it to the authorities.
Okay, so did everyone get that? Okay, so the lady over here has given us a testimony on the news article of a young woman who got pregnant, and she successfully hid the pregnancy from her mother, had the baby full term, and then strangled the child. Anyone else? I know. Over here?
I saw just today where a young lady was in the military and had been mistreated by some other soldiers, and she took it to the chain of command, and they sort of pushed it under the rug. So now she's going to a higher court concerning it.
Okay, so sexual abuse. Anyone else? I mean, we can recall about, I think it's about a year ago, an article concerning a child going to kindergarten school, getting into trouble for any normal thing a kindergartner will get into trouble for. And his father punished him by putting him in a washer, and he died. And we can recall, we can think of wars. We can think of abuse, sexual abuse. The list goes on and on. And we see it in society, that lack of self-control. We see the importance of it. How many of you have ever had the privilege of seeing a house or a building being built? What's the first process you see after you've gathered the materials? What's the first process? Lady over here.
What I've seen was they lay the foundation first. They pour the concrete. They lay a firm foundation for that.
That's exactly the point I want right there. Because self-control is as our foundation. We've seen that house built before. A box is built, and the cement is poured into that box, and it's left to, if you've ever seen the workers, the masonry, they make sure that it's not like there's no hollow areas in there. They smooth it out, make it all nice and firm. And that foundation is going to hold that building, that house together. And that's self-control for us. Self-control is what's going to hold all of the other characters. We can't have any other character without self-control. Think about it. You want to be responsible? What do you have to be first? You have to have what? You have to have self-control. You want to be someone that someone can trust. You want to be honest. You have to have that self-control, because we go through life and we go through things where temptations are placed before us. We think about, we hear so many news articles of in the workplace where people trying to climb the corporate ladder. What do? They steal ideas. So you have to have that self-control in order to do that. So, what is self-control? Self-control is the ability to control our thoughts. It's the ability to control our feelings. It's the ability to control our actions. And as I said before, self-control is the foundation. It's that foundation of all positive moral character. It's what's first necessary and needed for us to build on any other character. So it's a big deal, right? Very important. So on page 3 of the self-control unit, let's explore a child who has not yet learned self-control. And I'm just going to read a little of it here. It says, if you have ever witnessed a toddler having a tantrum, then you are aware of how the lack of self-control can be demonstrated. This toddler has not yet learned how to deal with his feelings and disappointments. So, the question to you is, what are some actions we see a toddler display? A toddler that's not yet learned to practice that self-control. The lady in the back over here.
They scream and throw a fit.
They scream and throw a fit. You had your hand up over here?
They'll throw themselves down, and they'll even hurt themselves sometimes to get
Yes.
attention.
Throwing themselves down over here. Let me just cut across here.
They even lash out at whoever is around them, whether it be their mother or their sibling or what. They will lash out, hit, kick, spit. I've seen little toddlers spit.
Yes. Lashing out.
They will actually throw things.
Throw things. We've all seen that before, right? We've been at the store and we see that child that wanted a candy, couldn't have the candy, they throw a fit for it, scratch the mom, whoever it is, over here.
Toddlers oftentimes, when they're having a fit, they shut down, sit down, and won't even acknowledge you're there.
So that stubbornness is there. They won't even move. The lady over here.
They will begin to kick up and pull the hair. Then run.
Inflicting hurt on themselves as well. Yes. Over here.
And some toddlers, they'll hold their breath. They'll just...
We've seen that before, holding the breath until you get scared, right? Because you're thinking, breathe, breathe. Over here.
They cry uncontrollably.
Crying uncontrollably, leading as well to hold it, not being able to breathe. One more over here.
I'm not sure if it was said, but sometimes they'll bite another person.
Yes.
Mother or whoever with them.
You're right. Biting as well. One more.
And just to add to what she said, sometimes they will run away from the parents.
Yes, running off, not wanting them to get a hold of them or catch them. So now, moving on. This lack of training in self-control continues, and this child is growing onto adulthood. No training has been instilled. What are some actions we are going to see at this point? Because I want you to keep in mind now, this person is growing, right? Over here.
Possibly and more likely risk-taking behavior.
Risk-taking behavior. We agree? Yes.
Promiscuity.
Promiscuity.
They're going to sneak and do it behind your back if they know you're not going to allow it.
Sneak and do it behind your back. Over here.
They may be yelling at others and to get what they want, and also they may even start abusing others. Maybe their wife, maybe their kids, hitting them, stuff like that. It just continues. Yes,
it continues. Abuse as well.
If they're teenagers, they start talking back to the parent.
Talking back to the authority or teachers, whomever is in charge of them.
You may see self-harm to the extent that they commit suicide.
Self-harm. I mean, we've heard of cutters before. I mean, we can think of many different ways. Over here.
They may also turn into a bully, bullying others.
Bullying others. So now we're thinking of this person who was once a child, kicking and screaming, scratching themselves, growing. Can we imagine or think of or see this adult now, this man or woman at the car dealership throwing a tantrum because someone just took the last yellow Mustang? We're not going to see that, right? So some of those actions we will see. What might be some of those we see it. We look at society. We recall some of those some of the news articles, and we see that example displayed as a result of that lack of self-control, that not being instilled in that person of how to control themselves as a result of maybe not being able to receive something they wanted. So we spoke about the lashing out. We hear of stealing. We hear of, we think of people who, you think of a child, and we think of their faults, their shortcomings. Some children are easily envious, and they're not taught how to control that. Then what are some things we see they grow up and it leads to in their lives?
I think it really depends on what the parents did when the tantrum was thrown, because sometimes they'll ignore it, and those people, I think, grow up to kind of not even ask and just do. But some parents will give in to the child to get them to stop, and that's just as dangerous, because those people think that if they just keep pushing, they will eventually get their way, and then it leads to rape, and it leads to abuse, it leads to all kinds of things.
Right, so we see that cycle continues, and it's trained. It's trained. The lady over here.
People that's usually like that are unable to hold a job down. They're from job to job to job to job because they don't like the authority, as the child didn't like being corrected when it was little.
Right. And so they find those means as soon as they're corrected, or, okay, so there's something, improvements that need to be made, and they're given that correction, it's not accepted readily or easily. The lady over here.
They usually end up having a low self-esteem, but don't know how to rebuild it or repair it or reverse the action.
Yes, low self-esteem. Someone has one more hand over here.
I was thinking of them not practicing self-control. That's reading on the news where they had the Walmart where they have an item that everybody wants, and after the ones didn't get it, they stampede the place, they vandalize, and just to get their will, and they destroy things so they can hurt others, becoming angry and enraged.
Yes, we a great example of that is the Black Friday sale. I mean, you will run over the next person, anyone, to get that, whatever it is you've been planning on having, right? And we see that a lack of self-control, again, not being taught how to control those desires, even though we have desires, wants, that we still need to learn to control that. So, life, we can say, is like a classroom. What do we learn in a classroom? I'm looking for a word that begins with L.
I was thinking
Rules?
rules.
Lessons. It's like a classroom, and we learn lessons. Or equation for all those lessons. Another question I have for you. How many of you have lessons you have learned the hard way? How many of you wished you didn't have to learn those lessons the hard way? Okay, so our equation is going to help us. We're not going to have those hard way lessons again because we have our self-control equation. We know our self-control. When we learn that, I said before, it's the most important. We're going to build on anything else. It's what we have to focus on, and we're going to continue to build on the rest. So, we think about the fact that thoughts, and I tell you, before I learned the peaceful solution, I never thought about this. Things would get me upset, and I'd say, well, you made me do it. If you didn't say that or do that, I would not have gotten mad. But that's not true. Because thoughts lead to feelings. How many of you have ever been in a situation like, I'll give you an example. One time I had to deal with a situation with a woman, and I felt like she was being treated unfairly. Because I'm thinking to myself, okay, you can stop what you're doing. This is a serious situation. You can stop what you're doing and address her, address those needs. And so I'm thinking now, and I'm thinking, and I'm thinking, and all those thoughts is going in. Meanwhile, I'm fumigating because of the thoughts that I'm having. So, our thoughts lead to feelings, which leads to our actions, which can lead us to rewards or consequences. So, we've been learning about self-control and how to apply it. Let's apply our self-control equation, and I'm going to break you into 2 groups. I'm going to cut you right down the middle here. So from here on is one, and from here on is another. We're going to work first on our negative and our positive. Okay, and so what you're going to do now, a worker is feeling overwhelmed. You're going to use your self-control equation to turn this into negative, positive. We'll go with our negative first because we want to end this activity on a positive. So, over here, you work together as a group. You can use your equation here to help you come up with how that's going to lead to your thoughts, and your thoughts going to lead to that feeling of that worker being overwhelmed. I'm going to give you about 4 minutes to work on that. You should probably be done before the 4 minutes is up. Everyone's clear on what you're doing? Okay. Time is up. And since we're gonna start with our negative, this side over here doesn't really have a choice, right? You have your spokesperson.
Okay, we have a worker that's feeling overwhelmed. And the question was, what is the negative way that he or she can use a self-control equation that will result in consequences? So, production is down. Nobody's working well. She doesn't know how to practice anything on a right way, so she places blame on someone else. So that causes production of whatever it is they're doing to decrease more, and so the company is showing less of a profit. So, of course, the supervisor is going to have to get involved, find out what's going on, and the end results that could cause, one of the consequences could be she either gets a demotion or fired.
Yes. Thank you. So we see how we really have to consider those things. Okay, so let's go ahead quickly with our next group.
Okay, a worker is feeling overwhelmed. What is a positive way he or she can use the self-control equation that will result in rewards? So we looked at just the feeling as being overwhelmed, right? So she has to think about what kind of thoughts she's having that are stimulating that feeling. So maybe she can address her thoughts, maybe take some deep breaths, and then come up with some solutions as opposed to focusing on how overwhelmed she's feeling. And then some of the solutions she may be able to come with are to ask for help from her supervisor or to prioritize the things so she doesn't feel like there's so much on her plate at once. And that would result in her feeling less stressed.
And her reward might be?
Just not feeling less stressed, work being more productive,
right,
because she has help.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so we're seeing the importance of it, right? How many of you want to continue applying it? It's possible. It's possible. Okay, so moving on to developing self-control. Now, these are some things to consider as we continue to develop that self-control. Learning to develop and practice self-control on a consistent basis and in all situations is a long-term process. And this information we'll get on page 4 of the self-control unit. Now, I wanted to point out to read the definition, or maybe I could have someone quickly read the definition of the word consistent. Quick hand here.
Consistent, of a person, behavior, or process unchanging in achievement or effect over a period of time.
Okay, so, So does that mean I want to learn to be a responsible person? I have to get up when I hear the alarm go off every morning, right? I hear it this morning. I don't feel like being that consistent today. Snooze. That being consistent, we have to be determined to do it daily. We can't be tired or weary, or when we do feel tired or weary, we have to have that self-control and tell ourselves, okay, self, if you want, because it's going to become eventually second nature to us. Just like some of us, I'm going to say some of us, it's second nature to get up in the morning and brush your teeth, or whatever pattern we've established. It's going to become second nature for us to stop. I remember as a child being, one of my sisters, she was the, let's do this, or let's go do this. And I was the, but what if I do so-and-so and I get so-and-so? So we have to be able to stop and think about, we have to actually replay this in our minds and see the outcome of something before we make our choices. So we're replaying those things. Okay, long-term. Long-term. Definition of long-term.
Long-term, long-running relating to or extending over a long time.
Okay, so again, that's confirming for us that it's not something that we can just drop and tell ourselves, well, I've been doing this for like a week now, because you know we're in a society where everything is fast-paced. I mean, we have microwave this, we have everything ready and to go. So our patience already is really thin. But it's something that we have to be consistent with and know that it's it has to be a long term. It can't be today or this week we do it and next week we don't and we expect to see a pattern in it. It has to be something we are going to be consistent with. Society, a great example of society without self-control. Because of that lack of practicing it, we see these things. Eating disorders, child abuse. We mentioned them in the news articles a while ago. We look at, this is the ocean. Looks like a car, right? Because it looks like it's running on the road. That's the ocean. Now, you don't stop and think about the fact that, okay, well, one person dropped their trash or whatever it is. Well, that one person, behind that one person, there's someone else and someone else that's going to amount to this. We see the land, we see wars, STDs. We don't think about the fact that STDs are caused as a lack of self-control. Because of the lack of people ignoring the feelings that they have. Oh, well, this is how I feel, this is what I'm going to do. We don't stop and think, okay, well, we have to replay those things. We have to be able to stop and see the future in about a second or so, thinking about, okay, well, if I do this, how many more years down the line I'm going to see this? Because we don't think about, I have to tell you, it's learning about the peaceful solution that really got me to stop and think about my actions is going to affect my children. They're without a doubt going to affect my children. Because we carry things over from our DNA, we carry it over to them, into their genes. And they suffer from the things that we suffer. And when we think about all the STDs and all these different things that's diseases that's propping up as a result of people not controlling the feelings and controlling the actions, and then the children suffer for it. This picture right here is a picture of a child. His ribs, his or her, it's a fractured rib. Where we're seeing all these different little arrows, green and red. Fractured ribs as a result of an individual not acting on that feeling. When we think about how we get when we are upset, I mean, some of us, for me, my voice raises. My voice raises. And then I feel this heat in this area here. And then my heart starts beating really fast. And sometimes, when I'm really upset, I cry. And it's a way of the body, or my body, that's the way my body is reacting. And if I don't stop and think about the fact that, okay, sometimes we get feelings, we want to throw something. We've read articles, I mean, there are many books on the matters of the subconscious mind and the things that can result from being exposed to. We act on things that the influences that we receive, we act on those things. And then we stop and we think, but I don't know why I did that. When we allowed ourselves to be in that situation. So I encourage you to continue what you're here learning about this peaceful solution, and those of you who are looking, is very important. Self-control, first and foremost, important. We have self-control and we build on every other trait. It's going to continue, because if we have that self-control to be able to stop and say, self, this is how you feel, this is what it's important to do. If you do this, this is what you're going to get. If you do this, this is what you're going to get. So we have to continue. Remember, I mentioned about the house and the fact that that foundation is what holds the house together. Self-control is what's going to hold our house together. I encourage you to continue implementing that peaceful solution, and thank you for your time.